I begin each installation in this year-long project called Listening to the Mother by walking into the forest. My name is Angela Carroll-Wallace, and I'm a land artist. So this is my studio. It's also where I get my inspiration, and also where I meet my co-creator, Mother Nature. This will be the 5th of 12 sculptures that I'll be installing in the Pacific Northwest forest that I'm working with. Each month before I start a piece, I don't have plans. I sketch, I think about it. But when I first step into that forest, that's when things begin to take shape. But it's usually not right away. So I play with the materials. I work site-specific and only with the materials that are around me. So what's available really has to spark that energy to become something. Another key component of this project is to spend time in stillness, to actually listen to the mother, and to just let my agenda and my ideas fade into the background and be with the forest. I started to notice with the seasons changing, the rhythms of the forest were changing too. And part of that was a sense of finding shelter to get through the winter. Within the time of exploration, I noticed different holes in the trees and little burrows here and there. I noticed how the leaves dropped and created a whole new habitat for so many insects and fungi. And it really brought to mind how many ways shelter is formed in nature. I've always felt at home in nature, a sense of homecoming. Feeling at home for this project did seem natural, obvious even. But I didn't know if I belonged. Was I an outsider to the forest? Did I need to make my own connections to really feel like I belonged? So that was part of my investigation. It seemed a simple question and also very complex, much like a lot of these installations. As the weather turned colder and the forest got quieter, one of the big questions that I had was about me. What was shelter to me? And how did I feel sheltered in this forest? What did nature offer me? And what did I offer nature as shelter? With this question in mind and pondering the great questions behind it, I looked around and found that the curved branches from this tree in a clearing really already was almost forming the shelter that I could actually fit into, that I could stand in and look out of. So that's what I worked on. I worked with found materials as usual, and I really centered on finding the very tall curved branches. And there were many, because in this season, there's a lot of windstorms, and the dead branches or the weaker branches are all over the forest floor. So that part was easy, getting the shell. And then I started weaving other branches in and out. and it just entranced me. It took time, but I didn't feel the time passing. It was cold and getting colder, and the days were getting shorter, but it seemed like I was nesting. It seemed like there was purpose for this day to get colder and shorter, and for this shelter to get bigger and more complete. Many of the branches that I collected all over the forest broke when I was twisting them in and out, but I was finding that as more moisture was falling, a lot of the rainy season was upon us during this time, that the branches were being rehydrated and became bendier. So I was able to really gather so many branches that were intact, that were willing to flow into my structure. And so the structure grew bigger and bigger and more solid. As winter drew ever closer and the structure was coming to a completion, I felt connected to this space, to the branches, to the smells in the air, to the ravens that were coming in and out of the space, and the quiet. And so I had time to think about the shelter and what it actually meant for me and for the forest. I have moved around a lot throughout my life. A life filled with different houses, but not necessarily my sheltering places. My parents both left homes where generations of ancestors called home, to find new stories in new places. As an adult, I have never completely found home. Not in place and space, at least. My heart and soul know of the shelter within the love that I'm surrounded with. Those human hearts that beat in belongingness around me. But not one with walls and floors. Perhaps this missing piece in my journey has drawn my attention to how the forest is shelter to an amazing, beautiful, intricate world of beings. Perhaps it is the thrum of the earth and the tree song that has led me to build a shelter here under a tree in a clearing where I don't expect another human to pass by. Perhaps shelter is the forest. Perhaps there is more to the question. This sculpture asks me to feel into that, to allow the answers to be as complex and intricate as the forest itself. And maybe there is no complete answer. But it comes back to, what is shelter to me? Nature is shelter. And how can I offer shelter to nature, to the forest, to others? As we are all connected, and as we are all one in the ecosystem of the earth. This is our one home. So how do we make shelter? How do we feel shelter? That's a big question, but it's a necessary question. And our journey is to seek that answer and to find our home, to find our specific shelter.